In this episode, we'll give you a story on an amazing rescue with ham radio, talk about preparedness, and it's not just for the month of September, what's been happening with projects, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned.
Looking for top quality cables that you can trust? ABR Industries has you covered. Proudly American built and reliable, ABR Industries delivers premium coax cable and connectors for all your communication needs. Whether you're a ham radio operator, work in broadcast, or manage critical infrastructure, ABR ensures that you are connected when it matters most.
And it has such tremendously different characteristics.
From static to clarity, ABR products. Built tough, built here, built for you. ABR Industries. American built and reliable. Visit abrind.com today and experience the strength of superior connectivity. It's the only coax here in the W0MET Ham Shack. Use code SAVE10 HamRadioGuy. ABR Industries, where reliability meets performance. Hello and welcome to the Ham Radio Guy podcast. I'm Marvin and my call sign is W0MET. Whether you're an experienced ham or just getting started, this podcast is for you. We are bringing you the latest of topics, news, and information and all things amateur radio, each episode right here to this show. This is episode number 43. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Well, this is something I learned this week in my news segment feature here called the Ham Radio Guy Tip of the Week. This is the process. I'm not going to give it all the way, but the how to get satellite weather from a NOAA satellite. A future video is coming out on this in just the next few days if weather cooperates here in the New England area. So stay tuned for that video, and I think you're going to enjoy getting some of this information or having fun with this. I've been able to capture pictures of Hurricane Milton and some other storms that have come through, some stuff that are out in the Atlantic. I haven't gotten a lot of westerly photos yet coming off the satellites, but this is a very cool, fun thing to do. And you're able to use the same antenna, Yagi antenna you use for like satellite operation. You can also use to capture NOAA satellites. Some couple easy programs. It's good for Windows, I believe Linux, and Mac as well. So no matter what platform you're working on, you can certainly do this. So this will be something very cool, cross-platform. I'm trying to find some more of those programs for you guys to be able to use. But it's a program called SatDump. So we'll show you the configuration settings on that, how to use it and work with it, and what settings you need to have set up for the different satellites. So I'm hoping that this will be of interest to you, and you'll find some fun in doing these once in a while. I literally just keep the antenna in the back of my truck, and I get hey, it's 5 minute pass. Get alert, come into my phone. The satellite's coming over soon. I'll go out to my truck, grab my stuff, and be set up and ready to go in less than 5 minutes. So it's pretty quick. So anyway, there is my Ham Radio Guy tip of the week. Hope you enjoy that one. And again, watch the video coming out in just the next few days here, hopefully, if all weather is cooperative here in the New England area. So thank you very much for that. Well, let's not forget our Ham Radio Guy sponsor, Dakota Lithium, your ultimate outdoor power solution. And hey there, adventure enthusiast, are you ready to supercharge your outdoor experience? Let's talk about Dakota Lithium batteries, your new best friend for reliable, long-lasting power. Dakota Lithium isn't just any battery. With an incredible 11-year warranty, these batteries are built to endure the toughest conditions and keep your gear running smoothly. Whether you're powering a ham radio shack, which I do here in the Ham Radio Guy Studios, use it for portable operations, and I don't have an RV or boat, but I do use it for a solar setup as well. And Dakota Lithium ensures you've got the juice to go the distance. Get yours today and keep the adventure going. Check out my link in the show notes and save 5% there. So it's all I've used in my studio. I do have some Bioma batteries left still, but I will be switching everything I have over to Dakota Lithium as those batteries pass on. I need to buy new ones. So anyway, I hope that you will like those and use them. And again, check out that link and save yourself a few dollars if you can. If you'd like to help support the channel and become a patron, look for me on patreon.com/The Ham Radio Guy. There are 3 levels you can support the channel at: Technician, General, and Extra. You can simply support the channel at just $2 a month, or get the Extra Class membership with more benefits, Still looking to give away a FTM 300. So I've got a few more patrons to join the channel before I give that away. I'm looking for the first 10. And if you would like to help support the channel, please join over again at patreon.com/thehamradioguy. Well, let's go into a little news here. So I want to venture onto a incredible amateur radio rescue story here in our news first segment. On the evening of September 21st, 2024, Greg Owen, WX7Z, heard an amateur radio emergency call on the VHF frequency known as the National Simplex Calling Frequency, 146.52 megahertz. Ed Clark, K7ELC, was calling to get medical help for a 51-year-old man who had rolled his four-wheeler. Mac McIntosh, W7ENZ, found the accident and injured man near his property where there isn't any cell phone service. McIntosh had given his handheld radio to Clark to help make the call for help when he gave his aid to the injured man. The injuries were serious: head trauma, broken collarbone, broken ribs, and difficulty breathing. Owen called 911 to request help. An ambulance, life flight helicopter, and law enforcement were dispatched to the location, which was 35 minutes outside of Orofino, Idaho. Meanwhile, Owen continued using amateur radio to relay updates to the dispatcher. The injured man was transported to the hospital via life flight, and last report was recovering. So, what a great story, just to know that if you're traveling, you have a handheld with you, and there just may be someone out there listening on calling frequency, any frequency you can find sometimes. You just keep turning until you can find one, maybe. But there's people out there listening. And again, ham radio is a great radio to be able to use in times of need. Let's talk about a little bit, again, serving needs. Is how ham radio has been serving the Southeast U.S. recovery efforts in our second story here. The ARRL has been closely tracking amateur radio's vital role in areas devastated by Hurricane Helene and Milton, particularly in North and South Carolina and Tennessee. Floodwaters and mudslides have destroyed homes, killed over 200 people, and left many missing. The power grid and roads were damaged, leaving residents without cell service. Amateur radio has been essential for communications, especially in western North Carolina, where hams work along first responders. WinLink, a modern email service over amateur radio, played a key role. Aided by recent FCC rule changes, local media highlighted hams like Van Lee, KM4TC, and Dan Gitro, K2DMG, who helped families and passed messages. Before the storm, hams contributed to vital weather reports. As recovery continues, amateur radio operators are collaborating with relief efforts like Operation Airdrop, restoring communication networks. Helene underscores amateur radio's critical role in emergencies, living up to its when all else fails reputation. So, again, another great story of how much ham radio has been used during these recent hurricanes and storms in the southeast region of the U.S. Our third story this week, Hurricane Helen, which had a death toll over 200, has caused landslides, flooding, and power outages, also knocked out 50 broadcast radio and TV stations off the air by Sunday, September 29th. In a number of southern states, radio stations took the more severe hit, cutting off one source of critical emergency broadcast. Based on the outage data received after the storm, made landfall in Florida in September on 26th, the FCC's Disaster Information Reporting System looked at broadcast stations in Tennessee, Virginia, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, where the storm passed through 48 broadcast stations, both AM and FM, were knocked off the air, while 6 TV stations were reported as having gone dark. Georgia took a particularly severe hit with 3 TV stations, 19 FM radio stations, and 3 AM radio stations out of service. North and South Carolina also suffered major broadcast station outages. According to the desk, an industry website, most stations went off the air because they had lost power. Others reported transmitter damage as the cause. The multi-state scene was a large replay of what happened 2 weeks earlier in Louisiana, when at least 5 radio stations were knocked off the air after Hurricane Francine, a Category 2 storm, struck the region. In our fourth and final story, as Hurricane Milton approached the southeastern U.S. coastline, ham radio operators were mobilized to provide critical communications support in anticipation of the storm's impact. The hurricane, which was then at that time currently a Category 3 with sustained winds nearing 120 miles an hour, were expected to make landfall within the next 48 hours. Local emergency services were preparing for widespread damage, power outages, and disruptions to traditional communications networks. Amateur radio operators, known for their role in disaster response, were setting up emergency networks across the region. Organizations like Hurricane WatchNet, the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, were activating frequencies to relay weather updates and provide essential communication between affected areas and emergency responders. Amateur radio is often the last line of communication when cell towers go down, says Steve Miller, W4EMD, a coordinator for the effort. We're prepared to help in any way we can. Hams are standing by to assist in recovery efforts once the storm passes and ready to relay messages and aid in relief operations. So this is all with the amateur radio news with the release date of Sunday, October 13th, 2024. So those were all great stories this week, talking about emergency situations and amateur radio being the lifelink and was being there when all else failed. So just some, things to talk about as we move into our, it's a great segue into our next topic, a transition to talking about preparedness. It's not just for the month of September. Now, amateur radio is an excellent tool for community resilience in times of crisis, as we've just heard in news. And September, was National Preparedness Month. And of course, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, shares tips to help you be prepared. And this theme for 2024 was to start the conversation. Now, I've put out some other documentation on my Patreon page. It talks about how to start that conversation and why you want to start that conversation. And talking about bad things that could happen, like a disaster emergency, isn't always easy. We may think we're prepared, but, really avoiding a conversation about what to do when a disaster really happens may not be protecting the people we love by avoiding these conversations early on. They're important to start taking steps to be ready and to stay safe. And I was down at my local government center one day, and I found a bunch of different documents, and some of them says like take action, prepare, and there's 12 ways to prepare. So for things like sign up for alerts and warnings, make a plan, save for a rainy day, practice emergency drills, test family communications, safeguard documents, plan with neighbors, make your home safer, know evacuation routes, assemble or update supplies, get involved in your community, and document and insure property. Now, one of the first things on there was sign up for alert warnings, and this is a little kind of basically look like a door hanger type thing, emergency alert, and it says this county utilizes an emergency notification system called NIXI to keep the public informed of local emergencies and hazardous situations. Sign up by texting your zip code or name to this number to opt in. So anyway, something worth mentioning there that you might be able to have your local county sign up for emergency alerts. I think when I was in like Dakota County in Minnesota, southern Minneapolis area, there was information on that as well. And, there's other things out there. There was a brochure from like Homeland Security I found at the Government Center. Preparing makes sense. Get ready now. I'm sure some of these flyers are also online. You can get a kit. Number 2, make a plan. 3, be informed. And 4, get involved. And then again, gives you a recommendation for things to keep inside a basic kit. And we'll talk a little bit about this, but water, food, battery-powered extra batteries, flashlights, first aid kit, whistles, filter mask, moist towelettes, wrench pliers, a manual can opener, things like that to keep handy. And there's more in there, but just kind of give you the highlight of that. And of course, FEMA has another brochure that's a little bit more in depth that gives you more about things to consider, like household information, your school, child care giver, and workplace emergency plans, out-of-town contact, emergency meeting places, other important numbers and information you might have that would be, for relatives or something like that. You ever store in your phone maybe your spouse or something, you just put a name in there, and after that you put capital letters ICE. So if someone does get into your phone for some reason, they know that in case of emergency contact is the person that you might need to get a hold of. So I've got my wife in there, and I've got ICE after that as one of my emergency contacts. So Something to consider for things like that. This little brochure, it's about 6 pages long, has all kinds of different pieces of information in there, and things to consider, and see how to keep your phone numbers, and how you need to practice different drills, or know things about your local area, and how each person would get in or out of the area, maybe if they needed to. So different types of evacuation, use of internet if you don't have it, whatever. And then, of course, in the back of the book, it has a family emergency communications plan and all kinds of different numbers and things like that. The Club Gear Online has an emergency contact card that he creates, and you can get it off Etsy. It's a very cool card, and it basically, this is like case emergency contacts. It's all highlighted in red, and then it got some phone numbers of people on the back. So if someone found the wallet, maybe they couldn't get into your cell phone, but they could get into your wallet and say, oh, here's a case emergency contacts. What a great little card to have. Some other phone numbers and names of people that someone can have access to in case something happens to you and they didn't know who you are or anything else. At least they have something to go off of, right? So there's some cool things to think about and things to consider, but we'll go through a lot more of this as we talk about this week. And, do you know what type of hazards are common in your area, where you live, where you work, where you're traveling to? 5 elements, I believe, to being prepared. And I pulled this from the Ready.gov. I don't believe it covers all aspects, but I think it's a good starter point for you, at least. And of course, you can dig into this deeper. I'm not trying to sell being a prepper here. This is just being situational aware and being basic prepared. Now, the first one is, how will I receive emergency alerts and warnings? Via text, via phone, via email. Where you're going to get it over off FM radio or broadcast or TV stations. And we just heard TV and FM stations went off the air. So, I think you have to have redundancy built into your plans. So, okay, I'm not going to have FM. I'm not going to have TV. May not have cell phone. Hopefully one of those 3 will be working. If not, do I have a backup radio of some sort that I can listen to? I don't have electricity. Do I have AA batteries or C batteries for my FM radio to be able to listen? Do you have a crank-up radio maybe you can use? Do you have one that's maybe got a battery built in for like USB-C charging? Something to, receive that information somehow. What is your shelter plan? Can you stay in your house? Do you need to go somewhere else? Where else do you go? Do you go to a local shelter? What is those local shelters that maybe your community has set up? Are they in high school? Are they community center? Are they churches? Might have a good idea to know where that's at. What is your evacuation route? Do you have more than one way in and out of your road? Do you have more than one way out of your neighborhood? Do you have an easy way to get out of your city? How many people, tens and thousands of people just left Florida going up I-75. It was an absolute just traffic jam. You looked on the Google Maps and it was just dark red all the way up out of the state for people leaving the Tampa area. So what is your evacuation route? Something to think about as well. What is your family household communications plan? Cell phones go down. Do you have radios? Do they carry a radio with them? Do they have a backup? Are those radios charged regularly? Things like that. So do you know what channel you're going to meet on? Can you use something like Meshtastic? Lots of different options are out there. Maybe some of your family members are not ham radio operators? Could they be GMRS? Could you still communicate via handheld? There's some cool little radios I'm actually looking into called TID Radio. Produces a 10-watt GMRS radio. 10 watts, not bad. This is something I can put in a go bag and a go kit, a box of some sort, and just have on standby for use. I can hand to my neighbor or something if it wasn't working. At least we could do daily checks on each other. Maybe they need something more. Phone lines are going to be down, obviously. So maybe some simplex operations would be best for something like that. And your fifth question, do I need to update my emergency preparedness kit? So if you have a bottle of water in there, if you have some snacks in there, you got jerky in there, some of that stuff may after 2 or 3 years go bad. You may need to just look at replacing that, putting some new temporary stuff in there that might work. Again, looking for something like protein bars, some jerky that will keep, have some sustainability to it. Maybe you can find some granola bars that might last a long time. I'm not sure how some of the other like Cliff bars or some of those protein bars are, whatever, but there's things out there I know you can find that will last and work a long time. Again, you want to keep those in dry, optimal conditions. Having them in your car in the middle of summer, in your go bag, or in your backseat of your truck, or the box of your truck, in 95-degree weather or humidity or freezing cold may not be the best item for them. So again, trying to find them in a store in a dry, humidity-controlled area might be best. Now, whatever hazards we face, Ready.gov has you covered with tips for safety before, during, and after. That's actually quite a extensive list of things that they have for different hazards and some things to consider. They have some great tips on there and items to think about. As an example, we have all experienced some flooding where we live. Some of these are more common sense things like not driving through moving water or water greater than 6 inches, but it also contains tips on how we know your evacuation route. Waterproofing is important, documents, etc. A lot of things to think about in there in those documents. I'll try and I'll leave a link in the show notes to this as well, so you guys can go find these. When emergencies strike, do you have a way to stay connected with your family and get information from your local officials? Again, what forms of communication are you going to be able to hear with that? I found these easy ways to stay connected. I went to Ready.gov and I made a download of a free fillable family emergency plan. And if you don't have anything else already created, it might be worth using at least. And again, provide the link to this in the show notes. And I would love to hear any comments on what steps you've taken and what type of plans you have built into this. As I kind of mentioned earlier, I just got into Meshtastic World. Maybe that is a way you can communicate back and forth when cell phones are down or not working. You're using the app, and it's connecting over the 900 megahertz network. If you have like an external antenna, something like that, that would connect to SMA, you could probably get out a little further, get that antenna up in the air. You could at least have a little bit more widespread coverage. But ultimately, these Meshtastic devices require that you really have a mesh of them to be able to communicate with family, friends, whatever in your area. Maybe you have some neighbors or other ham radio operators. Again, they don't have to be necessarily just ham radio. The 900 megahertz is not limited to just ham radio. So something to consider. You don't have to go to the ham ones. So you could, hand these out to other people potentially before a storm and say, hey, in case we lose cell signal, we can at least communicate text back and forth via these. So maybe you just put a pile of them together. So do you have a ham license? Is your family licensed? If not, have you considered that GMRS license that incorporates your family? And again, some of these things are, for GMRS, it's like mother, grandmother, uncle, first cousin. I don't know exactly how far that extends right offhand, but I'll just say it's a pretty extensive family network that you can have your family share those GMRS radio frequencies. Some simple FRS HTs might just be what you need at first. Who knows? But we'll see. You have to find something that fits you and that will work best for you. Now, shifting gears here a bit, if you have to evacuate and you're not all together, where's your meeting spot? Do you have a backup meeting spot if your other location is not accessible due to a road closure or disaster itself? Do you have an emergency contact list card? Laminated information that you can use in an emergency. Again, those names, phone numbers, addresses, emails, medical issues. Here's something we haven't thought about yet. What about pets? Do you have food, water for them? A vet number, name? Where do you keep your financial document preparedness? If your house washes away, you have them in a safe, you have them in a box, maybe a plastic box. Where's that box go? How do you keep that safe and protected? A lot of people don't think about this, but if an electrical grid is out for downed power lines or a more serious disaster, do you have any cash available? How can you pay for items at a store? The store doesn't have electricity. Gas pumps may not be working. So do you have a copy of certain documents somewhere for like a photo ID, a birth certificate, a social security card, a military service, your pet ID tags, copy of insurance policies, health insurance information, medications? Where do you keep all this? Do you have it handy? Can you take it with you? Can you just throw it into a recommended folder of some sort? And I've got one I'll share on Amazon for this week that I've used now for a couple years. And it's more fireproof than just probably waterproof, but I think there's some waterproof capability about it too. I'll have to double check that, but it's been very cool. I've really enjoyed using this one, and it really gives a lot of fire protection at first. At least if my house was to burn down, maybe it's protected inside the safe, and it can still charge documents. The whole goal of this envelope was to be able to keep documents more safe and protected from heat inside the safe. So we'll see if it fits the waterproof element as well. Now, while those are not an all-inclusive list, comprehensive list of things, again, this is the main point I started with is, the theme for FEMA for 2024 is start a conversation. And maybe it's just a backpack for you and your wife or kids that contains some basic necessary information of what we call the 10 essentials that's outlined by the National Park Service. Compass or GPS, if you need to walk or go somewhere, or at least you know what direction you're at, know what storm's coming, which way. Sun protection, sunglasses, sunscreen, hat. Depending on time of year, you may need some insulation jacket, coat, a thermal blanket of some sort, a light source, a flashlight, headlamps. I'd recommend headlamps. Reason I go with headlamps is because it keeps your hands free, and they typically will last quite a while. And it gives you a lot more flexibility to be able to do other things and keeping your hands free and being able to do what you need to do. A first aid kit, fire matches starters of some sort. I've actually just came across a recent fire starter as well called the Blaze 360. It's supposed to be windproof, waterproof, and it's basically USB-C rechargeable. And it just provides like a little dual fire from the pressing the button, and it can light a piece of paper and start a fire. So pretty cool there. Don't need matches or anything for that, but do you have a waterproof match holder if you have matches? Do you have any basic repair kit, tools, screwdrivers, duct tape, knife, scissors? Recommend something like a Leatherman might be multi-purpose tool. I would highly recommend the Leatherman for just a basic toolkit. A basic food supply. Again, those snacks or jerky, bars, nuts, things that can sustain you for a little bit, as well as provide some protein and things like that along the way. Water, you need to look at about a gallon a day for people. Sometimes it may not be that much, but if you don't have the water available, can you get water from somewhere, and can you treat it? And do you have treatment supplies? So maybe something to think about as well. And again, finally, that shelter, a tent, a tarp. Can you make it, blanket or something? Make some protection, get some shelter somehow. If you're caught out in the woods or something, the guy on the four-wheeler, what if he had another option to be able to do something like that? Did he have a backpack or a box with him that he could have, lived out there for a day or two? But with some broken ribs, things like that, probably a little tough to make that happen, but you may have to. Well, this, again, is not an all-inclusive list, but this should at least get you started on the right track and prepped. Find a bag that you can put together and fit all this stuff into fairly easily. I've listed several suggested items below, again, here in the show notes that can be found on Amazon for a very reasonable price. And I did this. It's kind of my first one was a first aid kit, which is kind of an all-essential, all-in-one pack. And then I pieced it out from there for little things you might need. And so some of these things I've used, and some of them I've not used yet. I have researched these items for quality, durability, and ratings. Others are based on reviews I've found. Something we've not included on here that I do believe to be important is a small foldable solar panel. And actually, I'll provide a link in the show notes also for this. Was one from Dakota Lithium, and it actually integrates with their batteries very easily. And it doesn't require, it's not very big, it doesn't require a lot. But do you have a way to recharge those portable batteries for your home, your phone, your flashlight, whatever it might be, after the first 24 hours? Something to think about. So provide a lot of options here, some things to think about preparedness. Again, it doesn't happen just in the month of September. There are, 11 more months a year that things can happen. Depending on what part of the country you're in, could be a winter storm that might be coming up in the very near here as we approach the winter time. And so These are all things to think about. It's not just during a hurricane in Florida, Georgia, or the southeast section. Could be a tornado in the middle of the summer or the spring in the Midwest. Maybe floods or mudslides out in California or any other place. So anyway, just something I want you to think about, something I've got put in my place now, put together, hoping that you will too. Looking for all things ham radio? Visit patreon.com/thehamradioguy for informative content, product reviews, and exciting blog posts. Join the conversation on your favorite podcast platform to stay up to date with the latest trends and news in the ham radio world. Connect with us on Twitter and The Ham Radio Guy for even more updates and engaging interactions. Don't miss out on the fun and knowledge sharing. Subscribe to the Ham Radio today. I guess that's the Ham Radio Guy today. My apologies. I missed my own name there. Hamfest. Check out the AWR Hamfest page for local Hamfest near you. Basically, the next two coming up will be October 18th to the 20th. His next weekend is PacificCon, ARRL PacificCon Division, San Ramon, California. And the next big one will be February 7th through the 9th, Orlando Hamcation. So I will be there. I'm planning that. That's now on my calendar. And looking forward to that one as we come around to the next big Hamfest for 2025. Well, if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and share with others. Please rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube podcast. Spread the word by telling your friends, family, and neighbors about us. And follow us on Twitter and Patreon at The Ham Radio Guy. Check out YouTube version of the W0MET channel. You'll find the latest videos and information. And again, I hope you learned something today as well that will help you in your ham radio operations. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them on Twitter, podcast platform, or email me at w0met@thehamradioguy.com. As always, this is your ham radio buddy, in the chair and on the air, the Ham Radio Guy. I say 73.